Alright, today we're going to start with sign numbers, and I'm not going to start with showing examples. First, I'm actually going to show you how to manipulate signs. Now, a sign number is just a number that is a number that carries either a positive sign or a negative sign, which is called an opposite. It's really an opposite, not negative, but it doesn't matter how you want to look at it. So the first thing I want to do is look at, if you'll notice up here, it is addition and subtraction of sign numbers, okay? It's really important that you get this straight and that you realize that that's all we're talking about, and then we'll move on in this video and we'll look at multiplication and division also. And then I'll have to do another video because there won't be enough time to get into problems utilizing it, but there'll be a part 2 to the chapter 6. So the first thing I want to look at is we're going to look at what happens to a number when the signs change when we add or subtract. So let's suppose that we have this big number and we're going to add a small amount to that big number. We're going to get a lot larger number, so I'm just going to put an H for huge, okay? And this is something you've done for a long time. So let's say we have 150 and we add 25 to it. We end up with 175. Okay, and this is something, like I said, you've been doing for a long time. The second concept is the same idea, and you've done this too. You learned it formally in school a while ago. Depends who you are and how long ago, actually. So you have a large number, and you're going to take some out of it, okay? So in other words, I had lots of money, and I went to the grocery store, and I spent some. What do I have left? Hopefully we have a medium amount left, but with grocery prices, who knows anymore what's going to happen. So let's say we had $1,000 and we had to spend a small amount. So let's say we spent $150. What do we have left? Out of that $150, we have $850. Now these two concepts aren't new. You've been doing it. I just want to show you the concept of what it looks like this way so that when we get to the next two steps, you'll understand what's going on. So now we're going to change, and we're going to have a number that represents our signs. So suppose I have a big number and it's a negative number, okay? To you, negative, opposite to me. And I have a small amount that I want to add into this. So the idea is this big number is in control of the problem because it's the larger of the two. It's like having a debt. I pay a little bit on a debt. I still have my debt. So if you can think of money, it may help you. A big debt, I pay a little bit on it. I still have a debt. So let's look at an example. Let's just do a simple one. Like I borrowed $10 from a friend. I paid the friend back $6. So I still owe that friend $4. So here's the concept right here. It's the big number. It was a debt. I paid on the debt, but I still owe the debt. So it's the difference between these two numbers, and I keep the sign of the larger number. The next concept is I have this big number, that debt, the negative, and I have borrowed some more, a smaller amount, so now I am in debt quite a bit, okay? So I'm going to say it's a huge. So let's look at one. Let's suppose that I borrowed $20 from a friend, and then I went to another friend, and they were kind enough to loan me, let's say, $15 more. So what is my total debt? It's the sum of the signed numbers now. In this case, it's the sum because we need to know the overall debt that we owe. So I owe $35. Because these two sum together to make 35, and I went in debt further. Now there's a way to look at this on the number line that may be helpful. Well, that's not very straight, is it? Sorry. Here's our 0 point, and this is the positive direction, and this is the negative direction. So let's look at this. Let's look at this problem right here, and I'm going to change colors so that you can see which one I'm doing in the number line. It says that I started at a -10. And it says I'm going to move towards the positive direction 6 steps. I do not cross 0, so I still stay here at -4. That's where I ended up, okay? That's that example. The next example we can look at is this one so that you can see what's really happening. And I'm going to draw this number line down here. Wow, I got a straight line that time. Awesome. Things do happen once in a while that are nice. And again, here's our positive direction and here's our negative direction. So what happens here in this problem is I started here at the $20 in the hole, and then I borrowed some more. So where am I going to end up? Because this says to travel in this direction. I ended up further in debt here. So that's the concepts there. You could say that the sign of the largest number is in control in this one, because it is. And in this one, it's the sum of these two signs. And we keep the sign of the largest number. In this case, the number gets bigger. In this case, this number gets smaller amount. So that's kind of addition and subtraction of signed numbers. The next we'll move forward. I'm going to clear the screen and we're going to look at multiplication and division. And I need to actually clear the whole screen so that you're not confused, because our next step is we're going to look at multiplication and division. So I've got to get things organized here. There we go. So remember, this is for if we multiply or, whoops, that's or, divide. Well, let's clear the screen. That's not very good. This is for multiplication or division. That's my shortcut instead of writing the words because it'll take longer. So let's look at what happens here. And I'll try to make it clear in a grid again. The same kind of grid we had there. What goes in, what comes out, and then my examples, okay? And I'm abbreviating this so that it doesn't take as long to write everything so that we can actually get into the meat. Now, in multiplication and division, we look at different things. We actually can look at the number of signs and how they're multiplied. So when we have two positive signs and we multiply two positive signs together, we always get a positive output. This one you've been doing a long time because you learned that 7 times 7 is 49. And that's the example. Or you learn, for the division piece, you learn that if I divide 49 by 7, I end up with 7. Okay, that's just a simple quick one. And you know those things. The next thing is two more like signs. When I have a negative multiplied by a negative, I end up with a positive. These are my two positive results when I work with signed numbers. And if you look at this, I'm going to explain it on the number line also in a sense to you, and I'm going to also include an even odd rule so that it will help. So let's say I have a -2 times -6. My end result is 12. A negative times a negative will be your positive. Here's a little preview of what I'd look like. If I start and look at the number line, and I say I go in the negative direction and then I go negative again, it's like a leapfrog thing. Don't worry about not understanding this. If I went 6 paces and I turn around, it's back and forth, even odd, even odd, even odd rule. I have two signs here, 1, 2, that's why I go in this direction, okay? But don't worry about it. So now in this case for division, 12 divided by the opposite of either one of the numbers. I'll just put the 2 here this time. It could have been the 6. In order for this to be positive, I have to satisfy the rule. The rule says two like signs multiplied together is positive. So I'm satisfying the rule by a negative times a negative created that positive underneath here. So let's go a little further. I know this is confusing at first. There are two other conditions, and these two other conditions will always be negative. And they are actually the same, they're just done in the reverse order, and the end result will always be the negatives, okay? Now let's look at the first condition, and let's look at it right here, because I can't seem to keep things lined up real well, so I'm going to draw a line like that. Not very good, is it? And we'll look at some examples here. Let's look at, we had a 2 times a negative 3. So our end result is a negative 6. Because the sign, there's opposing signs. There's a positive and a negative, therefore we have the opposite takes control. And this is the same case. Let's just do a negative 6 times a positive 4. Our end result will be a negative 24. Now let's look at a rule that'll help you besides the chart. If you look at the number of, let's go, if you have an even number of this symbol, opposites, multiplied together, an even number, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them, whatever, it will always be positive, okay? And then the same thing for this, except we're going to change it when we get to here. These are ditto marks in case you wondered. An odd number of this amount is always going to be odd or opposite. Now here's what's happening. Let's look at a sample. Let's go the opposite of 2 times the opposite of 3 times the opposite of 4 times the opposite of 1. Count your signs. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know the end result's going to be positive. This is why. These two come together. 2 times 3 is 6. And it's positive because two signs, even number, right? 4 times 1 is 4. They came together. So 6 times 4 is 24. So look at this. These paired together, or you could just count 1, 2, 3, 4, put the sign there, and just multiply straight across. But I wanted to show you what happened. They paired together. Now when it's odd, let's go over here and look at an odd case. Let's look at, this is my even case, right here. Now in the odd case, if we look at, let's just do a set of 3. The opposite of 4 times the opposite of 5 times the opposite of 2. In this case, if I count 1, 2, 3 signs, I know my output's negative, and here's why. These two pair together, 5 times 4 is 20, and there are 2 symbols, so it becomes even. But this one still remains the opposite of 2, so that sign is in charge. So my output has to be negative. 2 times 20 is 40, but it's a negative 40. So the shortcut, in a sense, if you want to look at it that way, is just count, when it's pure multiplication, pure division, however you want to look at it, you just count the number of symbols that are in the problem, and you can come out with the result of the sign right away, and then you can go ahead and do the math. Now, that's all I'm gonna do with this video, and hopefully you watch part 1 first before you actually watch me do the problems, and you'll understand what's going on. So thanks for your watching the video, and hopefully this has been somewhat helpful to you so that you can understand what's going on. And part 2 will be coming right up.